Hey everybody, aloha and welcome to the Leader Lift podcast. My name is mikekai. I'm the senior pastor of Inspire Church, the head of Send Hope International, and also a basketball fan, hoopaholic, all of the above. I'm really excited because my really good friend, Dr. Dharius Daniels, we talk life, we talk basketball, we talk theology, we talk leadership, and we talk about ethnicity and race. And it's a very good thought-provoking podcast that we decided that we would do a part A and a part B, or part 1 and a part 2. So really excited that I was able to grab him in the middle of our conference, our young adults conference, and I sat down with him, had a few moments just to see what makes this man tick. He is an incredible theologian, preacher, graduate of Princeton University, as well as Fuller Theological Seminary, and is to me one of the brightest minds in Christianity today. And this podcast, I really believe you're gonna enjoy this podcast. This is one to send to your friends and another to keep listening to. Take a look at this. I'll be right back after the break. And I'm really excited to have a great friend of mine and one of the greatest preachers, pastors, leaders on the planet. And his name is Dr. Dharius Daniels. And he just got done with his beautiful wife, Shamika, hosting our young adults conference here in beautiful Hawaii. And it has just been mind-blowing, earth-shaking, and just dropping wisdom all over the place. And it is great to have you, my brother. I'm so glad. Welcome back to Hawaii. I appreciate you.
It's great being here. I'm suffering for Jesus in Hawaii. Just suffering with oceans and mountains and beautiful weather. It's just so hard. No, it's great. I love the island and love the church and love you and your incredible family. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really mean that.
It's awesome to have you, man. I really appreciate you guys being able to come. When we asked him last year to come back after the Equip and Inspire conference, a lot of people in Hawaii had yet to hear of you.
Yeah.
And when you were done, pastors like Norman Nakanishi, local guys, they were saying, man, you got to have that guy back. And so he came back, and I'm so blessed that he was able to bring his wife. And he comes highly recommended from all over the world. Some of the greatest pastors and leaders consider you, my brother. If we could just get right into it, if you don't mind. Okay, first of all, let's just get into this. Okay, what's your favorite sport?
Basketball.
Okay, all right. Who's your favorite player?
Right, current or
Past and current.
Okay, past Michael Jordan.
Yeah, me
Without
too.
a doubt, unequivocally,
Yep.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, can't compare him.
Yeah, every sense of the word. His defensive energy, his offensive ability, his competitive spirit, the style, the professionalism, you name it. So I'm like, without a doubt, Michael Jordan. And nowadays, I don't know. Like, I like LeBron. I like his unselfishness.
Yeah.
I think he's an anomaly just in terms of his makeup, like the physical specimen that he is.
Yeah.
So that's dope. But I'm not as into a current player the way I was Mike. I think probably the closest in terms of the person that I kind of liked to watch play was Kobe.
Yeah.
And Allen Iverson when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
He was great to watch also. Now, I've had some other players I liked, but nowhere near Mike, man.
Oh, yeah. Even to this day. I got a picture of Michael Jordan right there regarding Larry Bird.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's my favorite too. It's interesting because we're talking basketball, but it's also a metaphor for life and even for church. Back in the day, we followed teams, didn't we?
Yeah.
Today we follow players.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
It's much more, I think one of the reasons is it's much more player mobility. And by that, I mean players don't stay with teams as long. You even take LeBron, for example, Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, Lakers. Whereas Larry Bird, Laker.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, Bull.
Yeah.
Was a Bull. Isaiah Thomas, Pistons.
Yeah.
Joe Dumars,
Pistons.
So Barkley had a little movement, right? Yeah. Philly and then Phoenix. But I think that has something to do with it, player mobility. And whether we know it or not, we loved the Bulls, not because of Krause and Phil Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
We loved the Bulls because of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Everybody hated Krause. But they liked Jackson.
Yeah. So I think primarily that's probably the reason you see the difference nowadays. Yeah, my kids are the same way. They're like, yo, I thought you were a Heat fan. Now you're a Cleveland fan. Which is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about this, I said, okay, you love basketball. You played in college.
Yeah.
Where'd you play at?
So I played at Millsaps College. It's a Division III school in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of, we've primarily played Division III schools. I don't know of schools that were part of the conference that we were in that the average person would know about. But it was a great experience for me.
Yeah.
It was great, one, because I got to play.
Yeah.
And like you and I were talking earlier, and I mentioned that one of the things that I knew was I wasn't going to the NBA. So in my collegiate experience, I wanted to do more than be a part of a team. I wanted to contribute.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually play.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be at a school that would allow me the opportunity to play the sport I love, yet also put me in position to succeed and thrive after my college experience was over. Yeah. And so Millsaps College was a great opportunity to do that. It was an hour and a half away from the town that I grew up in, so I wasn't too far away from home. And it was a great formative experience for me there. Had a blast and received my call to ministry there. So it was a really memorable and formative time.
Still play ball today?
I don't.
But you work out a lot?
I work out a lot.
Take any days off. You don't look like you take days off.
I miss it, man. But this is why I don't play.
Why?
I don't play because this is weird. I'm going to admit this. Fear of injury. I'm in a season right now where I've got so many balls up in the air.
Yeah.
I can't afford to pop an Achilles or tear an ACL. So I go and shoot around a little bit from time to time. And obviously I'll play with my sons if I'm working with them a little bit. But I don't play competitively anymore. And I miss it. I'm really reconsidering. I got friends that play to this day. Do you still play?
I still play every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'm still killing it.
I bet. Yeah. So
I got to say it. I enjoy it so much.
And I think the weird thing is if I had kept playing, I wouldn't be as susceptible to injury. You know? You think about that,
it's
right?
the guy that went out and popped his hammy.
They hadn't played in 6 years, right?
Popped his hammy on Thanksgiving Day, right? A turkey bowl. That's the guy.
Yeah. But no, I really feel like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things that can happen, particularly with like ministry, is that ministry is the kind of life role that can consume your identity.
For sure.
And part of what basketball did for me, it was an activity that connected me to personhood. It just made me feel like a person.
Yeah.
And when you're on the court, you're able to, on the basketball court, you're able to zone out in a way you can't even zone out when you're working out.
Yeah.
When you're on the treadmill, you can still listen to podcasts.
Yep.
You can still get a text if you're working out in a gym. But when you're on the basketball court, it requires complete disengagement with the outside world and complete engagement with the sport that you love and the community. The community building that takes place, especially if you're playing with the same group of guys. Yep. You play with the same group of guys?
Same group of guys for the last 8 years. I run the gym now. This guy handed it off to me. And I play with mostly non-Christians. My pastor told me years ago, Mike, don't play in the Christian league. They're going to judge you too much. They know who you are.
Right.
They're coming after you because I get into fights a lot.
Yeah.
It's not good, right? The youth pastors get into fights at the Christian leagues.
Yeah.
And even as a senior pastor, that I got into too many scuffles, and I decided that I'd go play with guys who didn't care if I was a pastor or not. Yeah. So now when I play, they don't care I'm a pastor. They really don't. They're great guys, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it every Tuesday. Yeah. You're going to make me pick the ball back up. Now, I still got it now. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. I'm sure Probably you do. Not. I didn't show you the basketball, the multi-purpose court downstairs that we actually fixed up just so you could see it. And shoot some hoops a little bit while you're with us. But I love how you talked about that because you articulated more succinctly what I feel about when I play basketball. When I play basketball, I feel like I just shut off because I do have a lot going on, like you do. Your trajectory is going high right. You know what I'm talking about? And John Bevere once said to me, he says, Mike, what is your hobby? And at the time I said, it's basketball. But I know this podcast is not necessarily about me, but we're having a conversation. And about 5 years ago, he said, Mike, you're not going to play basketball forever. I said, I rebuke that in Jesus' name. John Bevere, don't tell me you're not playing basketball.
Right. Yeah.
He goes, no, there's going to be a day that you're going to be too old to play. I said, okay, granted. He said, you need a hobby. And I said, he said, what is your hobby should that day come when you stop playing basketball? I said, I don't know. He said, you need to take up golf now. Take it up while you're still athletic. Take it up while you can still, you can learn right now. You got a learning curve. And about 5 years ago, Dharius, I took up 2 sports. I took up surfing.
Okay.
Because I never surfed.
Right.
I was a body surfer. I was a body boarder. Not everybody in Hawaii surfs. And in fact, guys in the water don't want nobody else to learn to surf because there's just too many guys in the water. But I learned to surf and I learned to golf all in the same year. And the reason was I just wanted a physical and a mental challenge. And I definitely got one.
Yeah.
So now I've got 3 go-to things if I want to do. And that's my hobby. I know you work out. Would you call your working out a hobby, or do you have something that totally takes your mind off of what you do?
So working out would probably be one of my, so I would consider it a hobby. So for me, it's not just,
Health maintenance.
yeah. So in one season, that was primarily it, I think. But when I made the decision to make it a hobby, it became more about just kind of an avenue for me to live out my competitive edge.
Yeah.
And you're kind of competing with age and your own body. And so obviously the health maintenance part is priority for me. So part of the regimen is going to be centered around that. So if I'm pressed for time, those things that are more advantageous for my health are going to be things I do first.
Yeah.
But I just kind of got into it also, like the body sculpting aspect and things of that particular nature. It was just something that became a challenge for me. And so the fact that I actually had goals kind of helps me disconnect a bit, but not like when I was playing basketball. But I still play video games.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's great for me. Yeah. So
I would guess somebody disengages.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely disengages. So it's I play 2K, which is this basketball thing and this very popular basketball game. So I've been playing it for years. I've been playing video games since video games came out. I'm going all the way back to the Atari, Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation, 1, 2, 3, 4, Xbox 360. I got a Nintendo Switch right now, which is a handheld game device.
No kidding.
That's what gets me through on plane rides.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's weird because you play seasons with actual teams, or you can create your own player and go up through the ranks and get drafted and join teams.
No way.
So for me, I get to play the game I love, and I kind of disengage that way. So those are kind of my two things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
you got me seriously thinking about basketball again.
So I'm listening to you and I'm going, okay, he's an athlete,
Yeah.
definite scholar, a theologian, an author, and a game geek. I love it.
A lot of those don't go together, do they?
Yeah.
Hey, it is what it is.
It's awesome. So, okay, so you graduated from Millsap College. Where did you go after that? Where did you get your master's at?
So after that, I went to Princeton for seminary.
Yeah.
And so 3 years there, and I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years after that, went out to Fuller in Pasadena to do doctoral work there.
Wow.
So that's where I got my doctorate.
So you lived in Pasadena for a while?
Well, I commuted back and forth. Yeah. Well, the nature of the program allowed us to do it because a lot of the work was distance learning. So we only had to go out periodically for classes and things of that nature. A lot of schools are leaning toward that now.
Yeah.
A lot of schools are leaning toward that now. If a lot of them don't, I don't know how some of the smaller ones are going to survive without the distance learning component.
Yeah, Fuller's changing a lot right now. From what
They
I
do a
understand.
lot of distance learning.
Yeah.
They were way ahead of the curve with that.
So I've always said in recent years that you've been my favorite preacher, intellect, revelation, inspiration. How do you sermon prep? What's your technique?
So I get asked this question a lot.
Yeah, give us the secret sauce, bro.
So it's really, I think for me, the key is, so I can open up Google Docs right now, and I have basically this catalog where I capture thoughts when I get them. So some thoughts are, so it all starts there.
Okay.
It just thoughts, it could be random thoughts. It could be a quote I read in a book. And some thought may just be a random thought. And so I categorize it. And some thoughts may be a potential sermon series. And so everything for me starts with these random thoughts.
Okay.
So for example, I was reading a book yesterday and the author asked this question. It's a book on stewardship. And the author acknowledged that often we ask the question, what do we want to do with our money? He says, but the better question is, what do we want our money to do for us? And that, I heard this guy say one time, preachers are like batteries. Once you give us a boost, we just run on our own, right? Yeah. And so that one thought created for me, I jotted down this series idea that I had based on that. So everything starts from something like that.
Okay.
All right. And then what I'm typically doing is I am typically thinking through and planning out a preaching calendar to some degree. So some people may plan out an entire year. I don't do that. I plan out as far as and as much as I have.
Okay.
So I don't try to create 12 series or 10 series just to say I've created 12 series or 10 series. Yeah. You know, I want to do more than have a series. I want the series that I preach to have me. Like I want to feel like I'm communicating something that has captured me. Yeah. And because I don't believe you can be convincing if you aren't convinced. I think that is a key and critical component to effective communication. Yeah. That people need to do more than hear what you're saying. They need to feel that you at least believe what you're communicating to them. Yeah. And so I don't want to just have a sermon. I want a sermon to have me. So when I feel like a thought has me or a series has me, then I'm putting that into like the calendar for the next year or the current year. Okay. And then based on my knowledge level of the subject matter, that's going to determine how much research that I do. So the planning ahead of time helps me do periodic research so I don't have to do sermon cramming. Yeah. So some people, you know what I mean? You're trying to, it's hard to try to write a sermon and then study the subject at the same time. Yeah. That's too much pressure for me, at least. I don't want that kind of stress. Yeah. So it may happen from time to time, but there's some subject matter that I've just already studied for some time and it doesn't require as much research. But other subject matter may require more research. So the point is that once I've kind of plugged in what I'm going to do certain months, I'm strategically planning how do I find books, articles, other sermons about that subject. And when I'm listening to those things, either when I'm working out or riding in my car or whatever, I'm jotting down whatever thoughts in that catalog area where I'm putting all these thoughts in that subject. So when I get to sermon prep time, which is typically what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm doing a series in September. Okay. And let's say I'm going to preach, I think it's 4 or 5 Sundays in September. I'm going to preach probably 3 of those Sundays. I'll probably take the last week of August and I'll do all 3 sermons. Okay. That's just the way my brain works, because for me, creating a sermon is like painting. It's art. Yeah. It's a creative mode. And I don't want to have to come off a budget meeting using one part of my brain and then try to get creative with a message. So I'm going to carve out some time at the end of the week, the last week of August, and I'll probably write those sermons for the month of September. I'll revisit it, obviously, each week and do tweaking and all of those things of that nature. But that's pretty much in terms of the way I prep for it, you know, as opposed to sermon cramming. Okay. For me, it allows me to do research, and people may say, hey man, your sermons tend to be content heavy. And that's not because I'm super smart. It's just, I probably spent more time gathering the data than the average communicator did. And that's kind of what contributes to it.
So your phraseology. So you've got a phraseology that is just unique. That's what. So how do you get at that? Like, do you have a yellow pad? You got a sketch pad, and you're writing it down, and all of a sudden, pop, it pops, and then.
Yeah, I think part of that is gifting. Well, one, this is what I learned. People don't remember sermons; they remember statements.
Yeah.
So you take someone like one of the greatest communicators, to me, in modern human history is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't remember all of his "I have a dream" speech. I don't. But we do remember statements from it. Because people don't remember sermons, they remember statements.
Yeah.
So for me, I am intentionally thinking through how, when I'm communicating this message, I can make sure it's inundated with certain phrases that are significant statements that people are going to remember.
So good. Yeah.
And so part of it is the gift of God, I believe, to be able to come up with it, but it is some intentionality behind it.
How much would you say comes before the sermon, and how much would you say you get it while you're preaching?
So I want to say for me, 80% probably comes before the sermon.
Okay.
It's never going to come out the way I prepared it.
Okay.
So like conceptually, 80% comes. So my outline is pretty detailed. It's almost a manuscript.
Yeah.
But part of me writing it out that way, and
So you manuscript it out?
not verbatim, but it's almost there.
A Word doc, 16-point font, 14, 12.
Yeah, so I will be a Word doc, 14-point.
How many pages?
Font, double space. I'll be
space?
8 pages.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that detail.
Yeah.
But I'm not a manuscript preacher.
I know all the pastors that are listening right now, that detail really helped. They're going like, 14 font.
Yeah.
14 font,
Yeah.
double space, 8 pages.
8 pages.
Yeah.
That's going to be typical
Colors?
for me.
No colors.
Colors, I only color what I want on the screens.
Okay.
So if someone looked at my outline, everything that's red is for the screens.
Okay.
Some of that is scripture.
Okay.
And some of that is statements,
Okay.
like significant statements. I'm going to put that on the screen. Statements that I feel like should be something that people are intentional about remembering.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it.
That's pretty helpful. That's, in fact, immensely helpful.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so I'm writing it. I'm that detailed because I remember I preached my first sermon when I was 19.
Okay.
And this is what a guy told me. He was a younger pastor who told me this, early 20s. I was like, man, I'm not really a manuscript guy. I think I'm more extemporaneous, even though I hadn't. And he said, my pastor taught me that you'll be able to be more extemporaneous and be more free when you at least have prepared in a way where you've got it documented so that if you draw a blank, you've got something to go back to.
Yeah.
Like it frees you of having to remember everything. So that stuck with me. And then when I was in seminary, there's a guy, he's actually a preaching professor at Howard University now, but he was in the PhD program at Princeton. And he said, Dharius, is important to write down for 2 reasons. One, so that you're able to see your growth in terms of your content.
Yeah. That's great, bro.
So that you're able to look back at something that you were, and I've got a folder. Now everything's electronic. But, back in the day when I was first starting, that we had floppy disks that you had to put in a computer. And so I was printing everything out. So I've got binders with sermons in laminated paper.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to when I first started preaching. And I'm able to see a growth in terms of content. But writing it out that way in terms of a discipline, it also helps with my memory.
Yeah.
So I'm able to be more extemporaneous.
I find it very similar. It's almost like before you can start dribbling behind your back and being able to shoot 3-pointers from way beyond the arc, you got to have the fundamentals down.
Yeah.
And the fundamentals are dribbling with your left hand with your head up, dribbling with your right hand with your head up, being able to do those things and getting that baseline of fundamentals. Then you can create all you want. You can go Kobe, you can go Michael if you want, because you have the baseline.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think that's awesome. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Leader Lift podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I hope it added value and content and food for thought for your life. Hey, listen, if you want to follow us even more so, you can follow us on our live stream on Facebook at Inspire Church. Also, our website's inspire.church, as well as you can go to my personal page at mikekai.tv. We're also on the Hillsong channel. And if you're interested, you can follow me on the gram at mikekai. And I'd love to hear from you on a DM. Follow us on the YouTube channel, Inspire Church. Hope you're having a great day. I hope this added to your life. I hope you enjoyed it. Pass this on to a friend if it meant something to you. God bless you. Take care. Aloha. And if you enjoyed this leadership podcast, then why not come to Hawaii for a leadership conference called Equip and Inspire Leadership Conference. It's October 9 to 11 in beautiful Hawaii. And it's probably likely that by October, your fall leaves are going to turn color. It's going to get a little bit cold, and you're probably not going to see the sunlight for a while, especially living in the Pacific Northwest. So I want to invite you to bring yourself and your teams if you're a pastor, or come by yourself and come meet us right over here in beautiful Hawaii. On the island of Oahu, right outside of Honolulu. I'm looking at Pearl Harbor right down there. It's so beautiful. Come to the Equip and Inspire Conference. I promise you, it'll change your life. I look forward to seeing you there.
To register for the Equip and Inspire Conference happening October 9 through 11, 2019, visit us at equipandinspire.tv. We're privileged to have Pastor Jim Laffoon, Anointed Prophet, Pastor John Cameron from Arise Church in New Zealand, and of course, Pastor Mike Kai, Senior Pastor of Inspire Church and host of the Equip and Inspire Conference. We hope to see you there.